Hello everybody. I'm getting ready to do a demonstration of our project, the community art project where we're transferring ink on these tiles that I've mailed out in kits. If you've gotten your kits, wonderful. If not, you can still watch the video, and when it's time for you to do yours when you get them in, you can refer back to this video, or you can get with me and join one of our online meetings and we'll be able to interact live. So I'm just going to jump right in. I want to try to keep this one kind of short, so when you watch it, you can watch it several times, get the idea of what's going on, and then, yeah, get with me if you have any questions. So I'm going to switch the camera down to my hands so you can watch me work, and I'll be explaining the process as we go along. I'm going to switch my mic to my, oh, it's already there. Speaker, mic, okay. All right, so you can see my hands. I got one of my pieces I've started just to make it go a little bit quicker. But you'll have your tools as the instructions I gave you state. Try to have some things laid out. For burnishing, you'll want a spoon, unless you just happen to have a wood block around the burnish with, like I use. Um, I'm going to use an X-Acto knife, a craft knife, whatever you want to call it. If you have one of these, great. If not, you can use a utility knife or scissors. Be creative, just something to cut paper with. And I'm gonna demonstrate the first time around the way I do it with my tools, and then I may do the second panel and do some alternative tools just so you see options. Think creatively when you're doing your project. If you don't have anything readily available, scrummage through the house after you watch the video and see if you can't find something to work with. First thing, take your template. Your panels already have wax on them, so you don't have to worry about that part. We're going to draw a simple composition. As you can see on this one, I just did some squirrely lines and divided the paper up into 6 parts. Depending on how crafty you are, if you do more than 6, you're going to get more technical, so the pieces will be smaller. If you're just starting out and you haven't done a lot of artwork like something similar to this, cutting and working with your fingers on tiny things, you may want to cut bigger pieces. So this first one I'm going to make kind of big. I'm going to look here in the room and find something just to kind of do a sketch of. I'm looking at my little wood block, and there's a box with the brush on it. Like I said, I'm going to try to keep it simple. So I'm going to divide this paper up into, right now it's 4 pieces. I'm going to go ahead and do 5. Nothing technical, pretty big shapes, so those will be easy to do. And I'm going to take and scribble on each of those pieces, and I'll tell you why. So when I put this on top of my block, I'm going to set it in the center the best I can. And I'm going to take my knife. I'm going to cut through the paper just so it separates these little pieces. And I'm partly cutting into the beeswax. I'm not trying to cut all the way to the wood though. All right. So I've cut into the paper. Now I'm going to take each piece off individually. Oops. Sticky. So I'm going to take the piece with the scribble, and I'm going to find a color that I want to transfer. I'm going to stay with this blue. I like this blue right there. Let's see if I can get all of that in there. Yeah, I'm going to get actually the blue. How am I going to do this? I want to get the blue in that blue green. So notice what I did. I pull it off. The scribbly part I want to go face down on top of the color I'm transferring. The reason is this template's upside down now, so when I cut this, the color I want will go face down onto the beeswax in that same shape. And that's what we're doing. We're transferring the ink off of these magazine pages. Throw the template away, and I'm going to take that shape and the color face down onto the beeswax. I use my knife and kind of move it into place carefully. Then just with the butt end of my knife, I'm just going to burnish it a little bit, just hold it in place. That beeswax is tacky, it'll hold it there. All right, I've used that one. Let's pick another. So we got that blue. This warmer wood tone might be nice over here next to it. So I'm going to pull this off. And depending on your kit, you may have colors that you don't necessarily love, but don't worry about the colors. We just think about the values of the colors. You put something dark next to something light. Look for textures in the pieces I sent to you. And I'm going to put that face down. So I got my blue and bluish green, and then my woody color. It's almost orange or brown. Actually, I'm going to do another one with this, just since I have it. Take a piece off, put it face down, cut that shape. Take that, throw it away. This one. And notice I put the darker edge of this is going to go to the edge here. Try to keep the lighter stuff towards the center. You don't have to, but I kind of like that. Makes it more vibrant in the middle. And sometimes I will cut. I'm going to do it. I like this red with that grayish brown. I'm going to put that right here. I think that's big enough. Ooh, it's not. Okay, I'll do it, but I'm just going to have to turn this. Oh, there we go. That red stripe right there in the composition is going to be nice. Nothing wrong with a little patch of red. I tried to put a little red in every kit, or at least orange or something that is a little more vibrant, along with some blues and grays, some greens. Yeah, and that text is always cool to have in there too, just as a visual texture. Okay, I'm going to burnish that in. One more piece. What color should it be? I've stayed with the blues and the brown. I'm trying to think of what could I put in here. Do I want texture or do I want color? Okay, I'm going to go with this grayish with these lines. I've used it several times today. Scribbly line goes down, and I'm going to cut this right here. Okay, put that in place. And if you're not familiar with using a craft knife, and maybe your edges don't get perfect, so you have some overlap or a little gap, don't worry about it. If the overlap's really bad, take your knife and just kind of cut through that line, and then scrape away what little bit of that you cut off that edge. It figures that this one I do it almost perfect on every one of them. But a little gap is not a big deal. I'll show you how we'll fix that. And when we get to this step, we've got all our pieces in place. What I want to do now is take our spoon, and I'm going to burnish the back side of this paper so I make sure it's good and set into the beeswax. I'm pushing hard, but I'm not killing myself here. I just want to get it in there good and flat so all the ink is in the surface of the beeswax a little bit. We're doing this right before we sand. And believe me, the panels you get have a thin layer and it looks really smooth and nice and perfect. It's not. There's going to be impurities, like on the edges especially. You'll have some areas that, let's see if I can turn that where it's not glare, where there's going to be voids of beeswax. There's also going to be voids of color when you do the transfer. So you may have edges that look like this, where my tools kind of scraped away some areas. You won't get a transfer there. Don't worry about it. It's just part of the process. It adds just a visual texture. I think that's what makes the end result of my painting so cool, is it looks like they've been around for a while. It looks already weathered and worn. So it doesn't look like, even though it may have a nice shine on it when I put a finish on it, it still looks like it's been around for a while. Okay, we've got it burnished in. We're gonna move on to our piece of sandpaper, and I'm gonna lightly sand this thing. What I'm trying to do is remove a little bit of color and the shine off the magazine page. I'm not trying to dig into it too deep. This is 150 grit sandpaper. It's what I prefer. If you're going to use anything different, I would go a higher number. The higher the number, the finer the sand. If you go lower, it gets a little too abrasive and it digs through the paper, and we don't want to do that. We just want to rough it up enough to where water will absorb into the paper. And in this case, I'm going to go around just a couple of times. Like I said, I don't push hard. I just do it quite often. If I see a little bit of color or a shine, I'll try to hit that area. You probably don't even have to do it that much, but that's just what I've always done, so I stay with it. I've done it before where I didn't quite go that, didn't sand it that well. Either I was out of sandpaper or whatever the case may be. So I've got that much done. I wetted just water on a cotton rag is all you need. Then I'm going to take, now I wiped off, I took the rag and wiped off the dust. And so now I'm going to take my water and just spray directly on top of the panel. And just let it ball up a little bit. It'll puddle up. If you don't have a spray bottle, just get you a bowl of water beside you or a cup and just splash some water on it. There's nothing particular or technical about this part. And I'm letting that water soak into the paper. All the time I'm rubbing my finger across, and as it soaks into the paper, you'll notice little balls of pulp start to form. When it starts doing that, that means we're about ready to rub off the paper. And I don't try to do this lightly. It's better when it gets to this point to take a couple of fingers, hold it with one hand, and then just push down really hard and remove the paper. And then as you get one side done, spin it around, and all that paper is just going to pulp up. And you're just going to brush it off to the side. And then this thing's going to, as it dries, you'll see what little bit of pulp's left on that page or that transfer will start to haze over again. And all that is the pulp. You'll have a little paper haze over it. It's kind of dusty looking. That's all right. We're going to spray it with water just a little bit again. Take our wet rag and lightly buff it. We want to make sure we have a good clean rag. We don't want any debris on it because it'll scratch your ink that you transferred. But just lightly buff it and make sure it's good and wet. If you use a dry cloth, it'll likely scratch it too. We don't want to do too much scratching, but if it happens, it happens. You can see this is it's got some voids in it already. You're going to have that, so don't worry about it. Now's the time to maybe bring out some details, add some elements that maybe we feel like we're missing. I like to start by just scratching into the surface with a little awl. And I just follow the lines of those paper where I cut the paper, the transfer, just so I can expose the background. And what that does is lighten up the composition. And then, all right, I follow all the lines. It already improved the look of that panel. And you want to get more detailed, you can grab other things to carve with. And I'm going to bring out, I like using this guy to cut some straighter lines a little bit longer or wider. I'm just going to follow along the lines of this, whatever that was I transferred. It looks like a fence. Okay, so that lightened up that area. Then I have this red streak over here. I'm going to just treat it as its own thing and scrape a line beside that. And that automatically makes this look a little more complicated than my original drawing, just by using the textures from the in the lines from the magazine or the ink that I transferred. And then now I've only got a couple areas of solid color. And if I want, I can fix that by just carving into it whatever design I want. It can be whatever you want. If you want to write something into it, you're able to do that. I'll show you. Here's one I did where I just transferred the image of a dog from a magazine onto it, just one big piece of paper. And then I just took this tool and I just wrote in dog. So plenty of options. You can write a name, a title, maybe the title of this piece that you're creating, what you want it to be. I wouldn't go too crazy though. You don't want it to be over the top. I don't know, maybe you do. I'm not going to judge. As long as you send one back to me that you've created so I can use it in a larger community art piece. I'm going to stop right there. I think that's kind of cool. It's got a little squiggly lines. It's got some straight lines. Got a pop of red. Nice symmetrical composition. You put that with a couple others that I've already done today. Some of these panels that you get will be lighter than others. Like this one has a milk pink background, same as that one. So you can see how much lighter it is than that one maybe. Let's see if I've got one of those. I don't have one of the blank panels with the darker background in front of me. But yeah, some of them are going to look darker. Some of them are going to look lighter. I tried to put one dark and one light in every box that I shipped out or envelope to the kit. So you'll have your options. Okay, so you've seen that one. That's the way I do it. And at this point, here in the studio, what I would normally do, well, this is one I just did. I will take a heat gun to this and kind of fuse the ink into the beeswax. And not everybody that's participating in this has a heat gun at their disposal. You don't have to heat it. At this point, you can be done with it, ship it back to me. Of course, you can keep the one for yourself. You may want to put some kind of sealer over the top of it. There's a product called wax sealer that's available online. I think it's at encausticart.com, if I'm not mistaken. Or you can use an acrylic medium like Mod Podge, something like that. If you use an acrylic medium, it's funny, even though this is an encaustic process and that's an acrylic product, it does work on top of these ink transfers. I don't know if it's because of the pure beeswax and the ink sitting on top of it, but I've done it for 10 years on different paintings. And I also use, just to save time, I spray a Krylon varnish called Kamar on my larger pieces, kind of the same effect. What it does is it puts a coating on there that protects it from collecting dust, where you can just wipe it off easily, it evens the sheen. It'll make it. I'm gonna pull one up that's been sprayed. Let's see if you can tell a difference. The colors are more vibrant after it's been coated in something, and it's got a little more of a shiny gloss to it. It's not as matte. So keep that in mind. We'll coat it in something. But the one you send back to me will be done at this point. Just put it in an envelope and should have a return mailing address to send it to. All right, let's go to the hard way. The reason I want to do two of these because I know not everybody has the amount of tools available that I'm using here. So I'm going to get rid of my fancy X-Acto knife and my other stuff, and I'm going to use scissors. I'm going to do this super simple. So, because if you're working with scissors, this is a little bit harder process. Just trying to cut the exact same shape in the magazine as your template is not really easy. So I'm going to just cut this into 3 pieces, and I'm going to make it kind of a zigzag pattern. I'm going to cut it, kind of put it in place. I'm going to cut that. Again, I'm going to show you the trick. Even though this is 3 pieces, it's still going to be hard to remember. You got to flip it upside down on top of the color you want to transfer. Cut it and then put the color down on the wax. So there's my 3 pieces. I got an Easter egg effect. Okay, scribble on top. Now, we'll pull off a piece. I'm going to find the color I want to transfer. This first one, I'm going to kind of go a little darker. Not super dark, but oh, here's a cool blue. This blue transfers dark, and it's got text in it, so it'll add a little visual texture for us. Now, I don't want to follow the text exactly, so I'm going to go at an angle. And so in this case, first thing I want to do is cut it down to a manageable size to hold on to. Oh, over here where you can see me. So I'm going to cut this bad boy as close to that shape as I need some better scissors. Good Lord. Let's try this again. See if I can line it up. Okay. Guys, I'm sorry I know the camera kind of zooms in and out, trying to keep up with my moving hands. All right. Like I said, you can stay pretty close to your template. Be careful when you move it, line it back up. Oh, these scissors are terrible. I want to get another pair. I hope your scissors in your drawer are better than that. Okay, so I've cut that. I'm going to throw this one away. And this is going to go right back in its place. Well, those dull scissors cut a pretty good line. It looks like it belongs there. Take my spoon. Hopefully you got a spoon somewhere in your kitchen. As much as we're having to eat at home, I bet we've got a lot of dirty spoons in our confinement. Okay, so we're going to burnish that in so it doesn't move on us. Then we're going to grab another piece. So we got a dark blue. And I'm thinking, just for fun, I'm going to do this here. It's got a variety. It's got some blue in it, some red, just a little bit of red. And I'm going to put the darker blue on this outer edge. Flip the scribbles upside down. And I'm going to line it up to where I want it. Okay. And I'll hold it in place. See how close I can get on this one. Well, did it move? I don't know if it moved or if I just didn't cut the line well. I have to trim that a little bit. You can, after you cut one line, you can just make sure you're lined up where you cut and go to the other side. Still holding it pretty tight. Okay. There's what's left. Throw away my template. We'll push this down. Okay, I'm hanging over a little bit on this edge, so I'm just going to take my scissors and trim that just a hair. If it hangs over, the only problem with that is it's easy to accidentally pull the paper off. You know, after you've burnished it in and you do that, it's kind of aggravating to try and line it back up. So use the round part of the spoon. If you go towards the tip, you'll end up digging a groove in like I just did there, not paying attention. So I'm going to burnish it a little bit more. Okay, one more piece. We got blue. I'm thinking I need something warmer. Oh yeah. I like this wood floor. Yeah, that'd be perfect. We're going to go blue a variety of little colors, and then now we're going to go with a brown. I'm kind of going a little darker on this one. This panel had a light background, so dark would be nice, and then we can carve into it to get some highlights. Man, this is so much harder than using an X-Acto knife, but it can be done. I'm going to prove it. I've actually done a couple like this already. And if I go back and look at my panels that I've completed, you probably can't tell which one I did with the knife and which I did with scissors, unless you saw how long it took me to do it. That's why I'm doing only three pieces on this panel with the scissors. It's a little tougher to knock it out fast. That worked. See how close it is to fitting into my puzzle piece. Yeah, I'm a little off. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move it in, and then I'm gonna have to trim a little bit. So it looks like, yeah, I got a little overlap there. A little bit's okay. So if you do have some, and oh, I cut too much off. It's all right. At least you can see how it is if you're not perfect. I'm definitely not perfect. That last one went too smooth though. Okay. Burnish it in just like the last one. We'll go back and forth a few times, spin the panel around, make sure all the edges are down good. Yeah, and from this step forward, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to get your sandpaper, which I have misplaced. Okay. We'll rough up the back edge of the paper just a little bit at a time. Don't want to dig too deep. You work your way around and knock the gloss off. No gloss, and then the color is going to disappear and it's going to just have that ugly, dusty look. Like you can see, there's an edge right there. It's got a little color and shine to it. Right there on that edge, there's a little gloss I need to hit. Sometimes it's hard to get all of it. If there's any pits or grooves in your panel in that beeswax, you may have some areas that are glossy, but don't worry about it. Like I said, those voids are going to be there on almost every panel that goes out. Okay, we've done that. I'll get my wet rag and just kind of wipe the dust off. I'm ready to spray it with water. Kind of push that water around, let it soak. I don't want to get too anxious and start rubbing right away, because that, if the paper's still dry, that means it's firmer. So when you start rubbing it, the ink's going to stay attached to the paper. So the little bit of time that you let it soak in is going to make it easier on you, and less chance that you rub off the ink. Okay, so it's starting to ball up. You can see that. Now I'm going to take 2 fingers, push down real hard, or 1 finger. You don't have to use 2 or 3. I like using that one mostly. Then I throw in the finger beside it, the middle finger, a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Get my paper out of the way here. I'm gonna take my wet rag and just do a little buff. I'm gonna let it dry some. Be careful when you're buffing. Like I said, you can tend to scratch it a little bit more than you want if you're not careful. A little bit of scratch. That if you just imagine how thin that ink is on the beeswax off of a magazine page. A magazine page is a sliver anyhow, then you're just taking off that super thin layer of ink. So you're going to be able to see through it. It's translucent. And depending on the colors you use, if you get into your more yellowish colors, and there's wood green, obviously showing on the panel. You'll be able to see it through. I actually had some that I did earlier this week. I don't know where they are, that you could see the wood grain through the transfer. So that's dried and there's no haze to it. So I'm good to go. I'm gonna get me a carving tool. I'm gonna use this screwdriver just because it's a nice easy thing to hold on to. If you have a flathead screwdriver, it'd probably be even better. Then you could turn it and get a thicker line, or if you want a thin line, this little Phillips is doing a really good job. And I'm just following along those lines. Oh, I'm gonna show you. So if you look right there, you can see where I had a void, and it's just where my two pieces I cut didn't fit together perfectly. So it's just a dirty wax area is all it is. So it's no big deal. I'm just going to take my tool and scrape away that area. And you never knew it. You never knew those pieces didn't line up perfectly. Okay. That's a very simple composition. And I'm going to do something to make it a little more exciting, I think. I'm just going to take this tool. And if you've got other things to work with, you're welcome to try them. I mean, there's so many options. You could even take a knife, you know, like this, and just carve a thin line through the piece. It doesn't add a lot of detail, but if you do that a bunch, that could be a cool effect. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do, hey, how about a screw? I wonder how this would work. I'm just going to lay this screw here and go across. Oh, that's kind of cool. Oh, I should have did that before. It's a very small mark, kind of like the scraping I did with the razor blade, but it's there. It adds a little interest. Even if you did it one way and then maybe come back another, it might be more obvious too. Yeah, it's a little crosshatch. Kind of neat. And I'm gonna just go ahead and follow that zigzag. And as you're removing these grooves with your tools, just take those little balls of wax that you're scraping away, and you can go as deep as you want, all the way down to the wood, or you can just keep it super thin and just do the surface. Yeah, it depends on what I'm doing, how deep I'm going to dig into it. I'm going to just mimic these shapes. Be careful. Of course, when you remove wax, you can't put it back. See how that was so simple earlier, those three pieces I cut and transferred, and now it's divided up into more areas. And because the background is lighter, it's adding a little more pop to the whole composition. This area over here it's got a cool texture, but I want to bring that out a little bit more. Let's see, I don't want to go too wide. Here's a nail. It's a little bitty nail. I'm just going to follow some of those lines. And sometimes it's cool to just leave those little balls of wax that end up staying on top. Well, that camera is so in and out. I'm going to go this way. The possibilities are endless. If you haven't started your piece yet, and watching my videos has brought up some questions, feel free to reach out to me. I've got all my contact information on my blog, on my website, my social media stuff. All the posts I'm doing about our project has got that information. But yeah, reach out to me, do your piece if you can, post it, hashtag ink on beeswax, or hashtag community art project, and let's spread the word. I've got 67 panels mailed out so far, so we're getting close to our 100. And yeah, once I get to 100, we're going to cut it off. I'm still going to do these classes for a while. I think we're going to be combined for a long enough period of time that we can all get these done. Yeah, hopefully within a month or so, and then we'll get them back to me, and I'll somehow curate them back together and create a cool piece of installation art for one of my next shows, and talk about all the amazing people that were involved in it from all across the United States and Canada. I'm going to end it right there. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on one of my Zoom meetings. If you can't watch this video, just send me a reaction, whether you liked it, if there was something I could do to improve to make it easier for you to understand. I'm all ears. And yeah, I will see you next time. Take care.